about that, but we got to we're on a tight schedule today.
Absolutely.
So it's 8:31. It's the Legislative Committee of TBARTA, and we are going to ask first for public comment. I see we have folks that have joined us. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, please? And if you have comments you'd like to make, please let me know your name and address so that we can add you to the record.
My name is Bill Parrish. I'm a volunteer from the West Chase Community Association, Government Affairs Committee.
Catherine, start.
Welcome, Catherine. We just started and we're getting introductions from the public. I hope you're driving safely. Tell me your... And Melanie, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're just making introductions from the public, and since you both just joined, I'll ask Mr.
Parrish, P-A-R-I-S-H.
Mr. Parrish from the West Chase Community Association.
The Government Affairs Committee within such.
Okay.
And I've been asked to attend these meetings.
Please stand. Are you...
Apologize. I've been asked to attend these meetings as an observer. I have no comments, at least at this time. I probably have some conflicts in the next couple of meetings you have scheduled, but I hope to be a regular attendee.
Well, our meetings are public, and we do have minutes, and so you're welcome to get caught up that way. Thank you for being here. I know it's a long drive. Next.
I'm Terry Bowers. I'm with TBARTA, so I'm just I'm a new account executive, so we're just observing today.
Welcome. I hope it's informational for you.
Thank you.
My name is Brandon Newby. I'm also with TBARTA, also a new account executive. So just here as a...
Welcome. Well, you have your hands full. We have a lot of work to do this year. Next.
My name is Keisha Lindo. I'm a new account executive with TBARTA. I am covering the Hillsborough County, and I'm just observing today.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, and back here, Mr. Johnson.
Bill Johnson, Chair of the TBARTA CAC.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and now we are on the consent agenda items for our legislative committee meeting minutes. I don't believe there's any action that needs to be taken there, but I would like to open it up now for our legislative discussion. It had not been my intent to have a meeting today since we have no action items, but we felt like it was important to share, or at least the chair did, that we have been very active having ongoing discussions with our state advocate, Ron Pierce and Natalie King, with regard to our strategy for next session. And of course, we do want to take care of the issues that were not able to amend onto any big transportation package during last session. And we want to see if we can amend the ability for committee folks to vote, even if they're attending by phone, as Melanie and Catherine are this morning. And so we thought the best strategy for that would be to have member bills, and I'll let Ron speak to that in a moment. And there's a couple other items that have surfaced over the last week that you may or may not be interested in, and I'll let Ron go forward. And do you want to come over?
Can you ask people on the phone to go on mute so we can see if that will solve the issue there?
Catherine, can you please put your phone on mute since we can hear the rain on your windshield? And Melanie, are you in the car?
No, I'm still at home.
Oh, good. You're nice and quiet. Okay. All right, thank you, Catherine. Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, let me start with a quick update on where we are in this year's funding we secured in the state budget that went into effect July the 1st. As you all know, we received $2.5 million in transportation trust fund dollars, which is non-recurring revenue coming out of the transportation trust fund. There's two kind of pots of money that we're going to receive. One is 1.5 for operations. The other one is for $1 million for kind of feasibility study projects for transportation, innovative technology related issues. The $1 million, I think, still going to be worked on. It will probably be treated the way we've done some other consultants, where those dollars will be used once TBARTA works on kind of determining what those projects are going to be, have a contract in place to work with a consultant. Those dollars will probably be paid in advance to be able to work on those projects. Very similar to what we're doing today on some other projects we're working with consultants. Probably the most important issue is the $1.5 million in operations. We've been spending a lot of time on that. There was two issues, just to make sure that you all know, and I know the chair knows, but make sure the board knows as well. We had two issues coming out of session with relating to those dollars. Is number one, with the $1.5 million, they wanted to use a portion of that. They wanted us to have a match of $300,000 in local dollars. That was going to be an issue because that was not the intent of the local match.
No, they're going to have to, did you just hang up?
Yeah, because.
Well, hold on, please. You didn't, hello? They're going to have to call in again, and they're
No,
driving,
they'll still be on the phone. They'll stay on
even
the
though
phone.
you hung up?
Yeah.
Welcome. If you are the host, press star now. Please enter your PIN. Thank you.
Sorry.
There is
Oh, you're fine.
one host and 4 participants
See,
in this conference. The recording has started. Please announce yourself.
This is TBARTA. We apologize for hanging up. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back.
Catherine?
Somebody needs to go on mute because someone
I'm here.
has some background.
Melanie, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm on mute as well.
Who else is on the line that did not identify themselves? Hello?
Good morning, Michael Case, TBARTA.
Thank you, Michael. There's one more on the line. That's a problem. Let the record reflect that there's another person on the line who has not identified themselves, and also Cliff Mertz has just joined us. Cliff Manuel.
You got the Cliff part right. I was good from right there
I'm
on.
so sorry. I don't know what. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, so the
Yeah.
1.5 million with two issues. Number one, originally looked like we're going to have to come up with some type of a local match, and number two is making sure those dollars are going to be in advance to us and paid either in 3 installments or 4 installments in advance. The good news is, after many, many conversations with DOT, number one, there is no longer a local match, which is great. And number two is, it looks like it will be paid in 3 installments of $375,000. David got an email yesterday from DOT. It looks like we're in the process of finalizing the paperwork to get the first installment of the $375,000. So the good news is we're moving forward with that, and there shouldn't be any issues in the future. I will tell you, the one thing we kind of learned from this year is, next year when we go back to try to get additional dollars out of Tallahassee, so as we kind of move into the discussion of next year, there's 2 issues we're going to want to focus on. A, we need to go back and get additional dollars because the $2.5 million is non-recurring, so we have to go back and try to get additional dollars. The number 2 is I'm going to talk about doing a standalone bill versus trying to do an amendment. Number 1, on going after dollars for next year, I would encourage us to look. We'll obviously, whatever the legislature wants to give us, we'll be grateful for that and we'll take it. But I will tell you, taking the transportation trust fund dollars has been a huge challenge the last couple of years. Number 1, the way DOT's been interpreting taking those dollars is they're taking other local projects out of the work plan to fund those projects. So, for example, this year, Psta had a project in the budget of $1 million that ended up not getting funded, for we can get our 1.5 funded. The good news is, A, Psta is a good partner, had no problem with that. Number 2 is, Psta was probably not ready to move forward with that specific issue on some additional local routes, so it worked out. That was not just a District 7 interpretation of that. Other local DOT districts across the state are doing that as well, basically saying that, look, if you get a project that was funded with a transportation trust fund dollar, we're going to go in and take those trust fund dollars from other local projects to make sure that it doesn't impact the work plan. So next year, I would encourage us to go after some combination of recurring and non-recurring revenue. It gives us a little bit more flexibility. Does it impact the work plan? It would be nice to get some recurring revenue for we don't have to continually go back. Because the problem now is, as you build in $1.5 million of operating budget based upon the state budget and the state dollars we received, you have to now come up with $1.5 million to make sure you can continue to fund whatever operations you're funding this year and the future. So we're going to come up with some combination of recurring or non-recurring. I talked to the chair of the committee, the chair of the board. We're not sure if 1.5 is the number next year. I think that's yet to be determined. I know TBARTA is going through the budgeting process right now. My recommendation would be is we may need some flexibility in the number. It's 1.5, it could be 2 million, but give us a little bit of flexibility until I think Debbie has a chance to kind of see what the budget is, working with David and his team to ensure that whatever we're asking for is an appropriate number. Last year, I was very proud of the 1.5 million was defendable. It wasn't like we were asking for some number that we couldn't defend at the legislature what we're asking for. So making sure that whatever we can clearly demonstrate to them is if we want 2 million or whatever the number happens to be, why are we asking for those dollars and how we're going to spend those dollars moving forward in the future.
So I have a tidbit for you to think about, Ron, going forward, is that the point that you made about how the FDOT allocates dollars, if, for instance, we're not ready to use them, they go to another jurisdiction or another district. That is a very important point to make to whoever you're talking about in House leadership, because I guarantee you that as a member, if they've not served on transportation and worked closely with the FDOT, they will not know the ins and outs of how FDOT operates. They're assigned to many different committees, as you know. If it's not their passion, they're not going to take the extra time to learn the funding process. And so when they talk in conference about trust fund versus general revenue, that is a key point to make. Natalie, if you could make a note to make sure you're educating whoever's on conference, that they need to give more thought to forcing us into taking trust fund dollars, because now you're talking about, and at the time of the year, you know, having to come back and lobby all the different partner counties who are working on their budgets at the same time. And in our county, just FYI, oh, you're not elected, right?
I'm not.
Okay, well, in our county, we have already taken that into consideration because we've had many conversations with our secretary, and we know that there's a possibility that we may need in the future additional dollars to allocate to TBARTA, and we're looking ahead to make sure we've got that covered. So I would like to make that point, Mr. Chair, especially during our big board meeting for the electeds, that that's how they need to be approaching their own budgets. We just don't have any control over what they're going to do in the legislature.
And to your point, I think a briefing by Ron and Natalie ahead of time for committee staff is probably appropriate for that. Because this will be an ongoing issue.
Yes? Who is that?
This is Pat Camp. I was the person that was online before. I tried to speak in several times from the beginning, and I got cut off the first time. And then
I'm so sorry, Commissioner. We had a little kerfluffle. Thank you very much for identifying yourself. We had a little kerfluffle in the beginning, and Jennifer came over and hung up and didn't notify everybody she was doing that. So it may have caused a blip in your ability to speak. We're good, though.
Yeah,
And
both times I tried to identify myself that you asked, and I couldn't. I just wanted to ask, I know, I think I just heard Ron say that, what was it, $1 million was taken from TSTA, and I believe also money was taken from HART, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's my understanding.
And how much was taken from HART?
hold on just a minute, Commissioner. Debbie, do you know?
Yes, thank you.
I don't know how much was taken from HART. And if I may, if you'll allow me.
Can you come this way
Sure.
so that they can hear you?
So I don't have to, so you're not
Thank
going
you.
to.
Debbie Layoffs, the Finance Director for Psta.
Good morning. I really appreciate the fact that you've brought the attention to this because, as Ron had mentioned, PSTA had a project we were not moving forward with this year, that we were able to move the money over to TBARTA. Had we not been able to do that, had Hart not been able to contribute to this, what I've been told by FDOT is that they would have taken from not just our block grant funds, but everybody's block grant funds. What the impact to PSTA would have been is we would have had to look to reduce service or make other changes that really directly affect our operations, not just the project.
Did you hear that, Commissioner Kemp?
Yes, and I believe, and I might be wrong on this, because I haven't quite gotten the facts, but now that this has come up, is that we will have to cut operations, probably on our 275LX, because I think that that has just been thrown to us to fund, and we cannot do that, and it's very low ridership. So, you know, I don't see that being viable. Probably, we're getting hit with all this, these things this year without, I think this will hurt us in our actual bus operation.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I mean, and this is happening across the state, and that was not the intent of the legislature. When the legislature, you know, put these dollars in place from a trust fund standpoint, it was supposed to be above and beyond kind of what the current trust fund dollars are going to be. It's not the way the local districts are interpreting it. So right now, there's a little bit of a struggle between a couple of key members of the Senate and DOT. I know conversations have been ongoing about that was not the legislative intent. So, they're trying to. I think it's probably too late to kind of fix it for this year.
No, hold on 1 minute. The legislature has control of those agencies. And if it was not the intent, they need to say so to the Secretary of Transportation and make that very clear. Because we have gone forward with our planning based on the direction that we've gotten from the legislation that was passed. And I don't believe that the departments and the agencies have the authority to just monkey with that after the legislature has spoken their will.
And Madam Chair, those conversations are happening. Senator Hudson has been talking to the DOT Secretary directly about this issue.
So, thank you. And so, Commissioner Kemp, how about we let, while in our break, because we have several other committee meetings before the board, are you going to be here for the board meeting, Commissioner?
Yes, I will be. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well then how about when we break from this meeting to go into our next meeting, which is policy, Debbie, can you try to get with Ben Limmer and check on this with him so you can come back to the board and let everybody know?
Yes.
And that may clear it up so that you don't have to have, you know, any concerns, Commissioner.
Madam Chair, I know you've got two other couple meetings after this. Looks like
That's all right, you
pretty
got
quick.
10 minutes.
Two issues. Number one of the major issues, one of the major priorities of the Florida State last year was the corridors bill. The corridors bill was a priority of President Galvino, looking at kind of 3 new distinct corridors that would involve toll roads. As a part of that, there's $10 million that can be used for transportation disadvantaged projects. The way that was written right now, it's more on a county-by-county basis. No regional organizations can tap into those dollars. It's brought to my attention that maybe next year, working with the Senate President, it may be a good idea to add regional transportation organizations as well, just to give us an option where we could tap into those dollars, especially since it could become some type of a recurring funding in the future. So if that, it was proviso, which means, as you all know, when you put things in proviso, it's there for 1 year. So if they're going to come back next year and do this transportation disadvantage spot with the corridors bill, they're going to have to go back and put additional proviso in. So I'm not sure if that's something that needs to be on our agenda. I think that's something where we could be opportunistic on that. Again, if that language moves forward again next year, we could work with the Senate President on including regional transportation organizations as well to be a part of that. The last issue I want to bring to the committee's attention is last year we looked at doing an amendment to a couple of the issues we wanted to get addressed. As you all recall, there was 2 issues last year we wanted to get addressed. Number one, we wanted the ability to be able to vote by electronic means, either by telephone or some type of a video conference. The other thing we wanted to do is allow mayors to appoint a designee from their city councils to be able to attend meetings if the mayors cannot. We have 2 mayors that serve on our board, as all of you know, the mayor of St. Petersburg, the mayor of Tampa, allowing them, if they cannot attend, to be able to have somebody in their stead come and be there, but it have to be elected official. Could it be a staff person? It would have to be an elected official from their respective city council. Last year, we were unable to get that amendment passed in Tallahassee in any of the major transportation bills that we're moving. My recommendation, and I've been talking to Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, about instead of relying on an amendment and relying on a package, packages in Tallahassee have a 50-50 shot of getting to the finish line, is maybe doing a standalone bill. My recommendation would be to do a standalone bill, actually opening up our statute to be able to go in and do those couple of changes. To date, and we're open to additional recommendations and comments from you and the board. There's been 3 issues that have been brought to us to potentially to move forward with. Number 1 is the amendment from last year, which I'm glad to hand out. It's the same amendment we did. It's the mayor's designee, as well as allowing us to be able to vote by either telephone or through video means. We use the language basically from other organizations that are statewide and regional organizations that can vote by electronic means. And then the language is almost identical to what was previous to 2016 for the mayor's designee. The other issue that's been brought to my attention, which is a new issue, which we did not do last year, is in 2016, the Chair's Coordinating Council, the CCC, was put under TBARTA as a committee. It has been brought to me by a couple of board members and staff that we may want to look at removing that, having the CCE as a part of a committee, and have the CCE once again be kind of a standalone organization or end up being housed somewhere else.
But that is not a statutory requirement, is it?
It's a committee of, it's currently a committee of TBARTA,
It was in the
2016.
implementing language? I don't
Yes,
recall
ma'am.
seeing that.
I think it wasn't in the prior.
Commissioner,
Yes, who is that?
that's Catherine. I have a couple of questions. I'm almost there, but first one on the funding. And is it possible, if we can't go for recurring, that we could ask for a 2-year, say, try and get it for 2 years instead of 1?
It doesn't work
that's
that way.
one question.
The legislature meets annually, so you know, appropriations is appropriated every year, not for, and even if
So
it
it's
did,
either 1
even,
year or recurring?
it doesn't matter, even if they said it was, recurring is a different story. Yeah,
I mean, the one good thing about transportation trust fund dollars is you can spend them longer than 1 year. You have a larger time frame. If you go after recurring or non-recurring revenue, it's typically 1 year at that point. It's a long run on answer. You could potentially spend the dollars after 1 year, but it's a huge issue to do that, and we don't want to get into. Typically, if it's recurring or non-recurring, you have to spend it that 12-month fiscal year.
correct. And in the spirit of full disclosure,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, finish your comment.
You had other questions, Commissioner?
I did. The other question is on the voting issue. Just want to see if I am remembering correctly that we're trying to be able to vote on the committees, not necessarily vote on TBARTA issues remotely, but on the committee.
Correct.
Okay. That should be a no-brainer.
Oh,
That full board, we envision doing that as well for the sake of people having to travel too far. And I don't see any issue with the full board being, as long as it's properly noticed and complies with all the statutory rules, why you can't have a full board meeting via telephone.
Tallahassee was fine with the way it was written,
we're being informed that the way that was written up for the legislators is that would be not only the committee meetings, but the full board as well.
If it becomes an issue, I'm okay with separating it if we can't get everything we want, at least get the board,
Okay.
the recommending boards underneath.
Yeah, the policy committee should probably address that issue more in depth, give us a little bit of leeway time to write the proposal.
Anything else, Commissioner Starkey?
Yeah.
Catherine?
No, that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Kemp, You had something else?
About the transportation disadvantage,
Yes?
with regards to the corridors, so, is there money this year?
Yes, ma'am, there's $10 million as a part of that bill, yes, ma'am.
Oh, $10 million to be split across the state, or
It's
where
not
is
a-
it split?
It's not across the state. It's basically an opportunity for different organizations to go in and
Apply, right?
and apply for those dollars.
It's for different transit agencies in a certain area?
It's not for transit agencies. I think the way it's written is it's also trying to use innovation and technology as a part of that for transportation disadvantaged projects.
TNCs can
Okay.
apply for it.
Yeah, specifically, it's allowing TNCs like the Uber and Lyft to be able to partner. Now, they could partner with transit agencies, Commissioner, so if a TNC like an Uber or a Lyft or, another TNC has the ability to come up with a new project, they could partner with, and I think that's what they're looking to do, is partner with different transit agencies to be able to provide additional services. It's all about providing new services.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yeah, well, when you say the category of transportation disadvantage, are we talking about, the people that are using now that are on, 1/4 mile from our transit line?
It could be used for that. I mean, very similar to what Psta has already got in place here in Pinellas County. It could be done for first mile, last mile related issues.
And can it also fund, taxi services?
I don't know off the top of my, I'll have to go back and review the specific languages in the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Melanie, you have anything?
I do not.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything?
Do we need to approve the minutes from?
We don't have a quorum,
Gotcha.
do we now, actually?
Well, we do, but with them on the phone, but they can't vote.
Well, right, they can't, it's that they can't count toward a quorum. It's not that they
Correct.
can't-
Current law,
right.
yeah, because-
Under the current law, that's one of the things we've been discussing, right? You can't count toward the quorum if you're attending telephonically. If you have a quorum present, then you can vote whether you're attending telephonically or not. But we don't have a quorum, so I would suggest we leave that to our August meeting if we have a.
I
we
think
don't-
Commissioner Starkey said she was on her way here, or almost here, so.
Yes. But you also can approve the minutes. You can approve both sets of
Yeah, I'm
minutes
about
at
to
your
park.
next meeting as well.
All right, so can't we approve them at the regular board meeting?
She'll be here in a few minutes,
Legislative
too, so.
committee meeting
I think she's
minutes?
parking right now.
Well, yeah, because we're all there.
I am, I'm pulling in.
Yeah.
But the meeting hasn't, but the legislative committee meeting hasn't been noticed for the time of the board meeting. So if she comes in and we want to do it now at the end, I think that's fine. But I think to pick up the matter later at 10 a.m. would be, I would prefer we pick it up at the next legislative policy committee meeting that's been noticed.
Well, I'm getting out of my car right now.
As she's walking in, Madam Chair, I can eat up a
Okay.
minute.
Yeah.
My recommendation would be so committee week started in September. First committee week, not a lot's gonna happen, as we all know. It'd be more organizational in nature, probably a lot of presentations. There's 2 committee weeks in October, 2 in November, 1 in December. Session starts in January. My recommendation would be with the direction from you all, if you're okay with potentially moving forward with the bill, moving forward with an appropriation, ask for next year again, those would be our 2 priorities. We can flush out some of the language between now and our next legislative meeting in August, come back to the board with some recommended language, have you all approve that at some level, and again, it may change, but conceptually, at least give us, something to work with in a framework. And then maybe either full approval by the board either in August or September, either one would be fine. In a perfect world, if we can hit the ground running in October, that's where we need to be.
Thank you, Ron. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I had a meeting with Senator Roussan earlier this week and spoke to him about our legislative priorities for TBARTA because he asked. And so he is prepared to help us, and I know that Representative Toledo and Representative Diamond have also indicated a willingness to help us. And on the Senate side, the senators can file as many bills as they want, but the House side is limited. So we have to be strategic.
And I think we'll follow the same path we did last year. I believe Senator Brandis and Representative Toledo were the sponsors of the appropriation in the respective House and Senate. So we'll do that again probably this year. And again, to your point, I've already talked to Representative Toledo about potentially sponsoring a bill, and I think she's prepared to help.
Chair, just a quick follow-up question too, and I'd like to get some staff input on the third prong of what our legislative package is, and that's to whether we tighten up the actual legislation about whether the CCC stays within TBARTA or is a standalone agency. It seems to me that the integration with TBARTA occurred prior to us being repurposed as a transit-only organization.
Yeah,
This
I
is kind
didn't
of
remember
carryover
it.
language,
I
so,
didn't remember it in the implementing
I'd
language.
like to ask David if he has any recommendations on that.
Well, there is less of an alignment with the MPOs and the CCC now than prior to 2017. This topic was brought up at the CCC board meeting last Friday as well as a topic of conversation for them, and I think they're going to revisit it in December as to whether they're interested in separating TBARTA and the CCC and moving the TMA leadership group under the CCC. So if that is something that we wanted to pursue, this would be an ideal opportunity to do so.
It would seem in terms of efficiency to me, if the legislature really wants us to focus on transit, that it's a little bit of a side issue to be involved in the MPOs and the CCC.
And I guess one other related issue with the CCC is that the statute also indicates that TBARTA must provide staff services for the CCC and the MPO staff directors. So we do coordinate with them routinely on scheduling meetings and developing agendas and recording minutes of the staff directors' meetings, which are held monthly. So if we were able to separate the two, that would remove that distraction from TBARTA.
And also deploy assets and resources elsewhere.
That's correct.
Madam Chair, my final point would be is if you want to move forward with that, again, that's an easy amendment. It's just one motion line to the amendment I've already got prepared for bill language. The other thing I'd encourage us to do is let's not do a whole lot if we're going to stick to those three things. I think that's very doable. If we get into changing something that is substantive,
Okay.
I think you can see the legislature push back.
Okay, and on that, we have to adjourn because we're late starting our policy committee.
Minutes, now Catherine.
And the minute,
Move
let
to
them.
approve the minutes?
Second.
We got that done, thank you.
All those in favor?
All those in favor, aye, okay? And now we are adjourned, and what's the deal with policy, is Melanie, are you coming, Melanie?
Yeah, I'm doing, this may or may not be more than you want to know, but I went to an event last night and something I ate just didn't sit well. So thankfully I am feeling better now, but it was a rough morning. So, but I will make it to all by 10 o'clock, I promise.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you gonna stick with us?
But I will go ahead and call this public policy meeting to order. And like I said, I apologize that I'm not there to count towards the quorum when you vote. But I want to start with, are there any public comments?
We have folks here in the public. Is there anybody that wants to say anything for the policy committee? No? They've all identified themselves. The only other new one is Katina from FDOT and...
Yeah, come from FDT also.
And your name?
Nick Guido.
Nick Guido.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could make a
Hurry,
comment on this one.
hurry, Bill. We're very short on time.
I had an opportunity to meet with Secretary of Transportation, can't remember his name right now, in Tallahassee, and one of the things that he did say, Kevin Tebow, one of the things he did say to me, he noticed that I was wearing my TBARTA button, and so he was aware of that. The other thing he said is he wants lots of feedback. So if you have concerns, just keep that information going to him.
Well, I appreciate your comments, Mr. Johnson, but we do work with Secretary Gwynn, and he gets detailed reports every time we meet, so.
I'm just passing on
Yeah, thank
a
you.
comment.
Okay,
from the
moving
State
forward,
Secretary.
the consent items.
Yeah, I think, isn't Melanie running chair in the meeting?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Melanie, you're not here, and I just
We're
totally.
finished with legislation.
No, thank you. With that though, for the purposes of getting accurate meeting minutes, if we could, is there any, I guess we can go ahead and go around on the phone. Obviously, I am attending by phone. Is there anybody else who's still on the line?
I don't think there's a quorum present to pass that.
Yes,
down.
there is. Yes, we
There
have,
is?
well, we have.
I'm still on,
I'm
Cliff,
wondering for the purposes
Catherine,
of, I'm sorry, for the
and
purposes of getting the minutes down accurately
Well,
for
I'm
this
on there
meeting.
too.
I was wondering
Yeah.
if is anybody else on the line that we need to record for this meeting minute? Okay, great. And then Jennifer, do you have everybody in person that you need to get?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner
great.
Kemp is on the committee, I didn't know she was still on the line.
She's still on the line. She
So
said she
Commissioner
was.
Kemp, yeah,
Yeah.
so, and you do have a quorum present, so.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Great. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes passed in June 21, and with that, we'll go ahead and go into the procurement card policy. Is Melanie Williams present regarding that issue?
Hello, yes, I am. Good morning, Melanie.
Good morning.
I am Melanie Williams, the senior accountant at TBARTA. Can you guys hear me? Okay, good morning. We're making recommendation for the approval of the procurement card policy. And basically, the policy is included in your packet, so I'm not for sure if you were able to actually read the full policy. But a little bit background, the procurement card policy is known as the P card. And basically, it was developed in accordance with the procurement policy and procedures that we currently have. And what the P card is a TBARTA credit card provided to employees upon an approval under the executive director to establish a more efficient and cost-effective method in purchasing and making purchases and payments for improved expenses. The P card was actually designed to eliminate petty cash, enhance productivity, and reduce paperwork. And basically, the P card actually streamlines payment and procurement procedures associated with small dollar values. So what it does, it allows for quicker receipts of goods and services to TBARTA and payments faster to suppliers. And one advantage of the P card is its advantage is it supplies receive payment. Let me back up. One advantage of the P card is that it provides we receive our payments. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. One advantage of the P card is that it provides, we receive our payment.
A record of the
Summary.
payments?
Yes.
The statement? Yeah.
Basically, the suppliers makes the payments, and then one advantage is the cash management, where we receive the statement 20 to 30 days after the payment. So basically, we'll receive the credit card statement, and then those expenses won't be due until 20 to 30 days after. So one advantage is that it's a MasterCard, and it provides no annual fees and no transaction fees and reporting fees. So that's one advantage of the policy. The policy will also apply to departments of all the TBARTA members and all the board members in all the departments of TBARTA. The executive director will be responsible for implementing the policy, and the senior accountant, which is me, will be the P card administrator under the direction of the executive director. The compliance of the policy will be the responsible of the employees, as well as their respective directors and managers and supervisor. So basically, that's the background in a nutshell, and I do apologize because I know that I'm recording on TV, so it's kind of makes me nervous. But if you have any questions or comments, I'll be glad to explain to you more in detail about it. So.
Well, Melanie, you are doing an awesome job, so thank you for being here this morning. And with that, are there any questions for Melanie about the policy that's been proposed? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion regarding the policy that's been proposed?
I'll move to accept.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Melanie, you did so well. You have
I
to
am,
work, girl. You
I
did
am,
so.
I really do apologize. I used to not get that nervous, but for some reason, everything was moving fast, and I really do apologize. I have, that's
No
really
worries.
not me. I usually.
No worries.
You did an awesome job, and we appreciate you joining us this morning, so thank you for that.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, David, I'll go ahead and recognize you for committee member attendance policy. This is something that David and I have discussed a few times, as well as I know has been brought up various times, especially by Commissioner Long and other members of the board, about how to address committee member attendance policy while we potentially await a legislative change to our statute. So David, I'll let you go ahead and make any necessary comments about the materials that have been provided in the packet.
Yes, thank you. So as everybody's aware, this has been a topic that has been discussed and brought up at previous committee and board meetings. The policy committee asked me to get with our general counsel and come up with some recommendations that we might be able to offer the policy committee to address the concerns. Our general counsel, Alan Zimmern, and I met in March, and we did come up with some suggestions, and council subsequently drafted an amendment to our bylaws, which would address attendance for committee members. In discussing this with Chair Griffin, we decided, due to the fact that we were still at the time going through the legislative process and conversations with Tallahassee, that we would kind of table the amendment until after session to see if our request was addressed through that process instead. And as everybody's aware, it was not, so we wanted at this time to bring the draft amendment back to the policy committee for consideration and discussion.
And with that, David, can you go ahead and outline, I know it's a great background, but exactly what the proposed policy says?
So the, and I guess to frame it up a little bit better, is this amendment to the bylaws, this draft, would apply for committee meetings, not board meetings. Because, and the thought process was that board members are appointed to TBARTA's board by their governing authority, whether they're gubernatorial appointees, or they are mayors, or they are county commissioners. And lack of attendance is not within the purview of TBARTA's executive director or the board to be able to remove anybody or impose any sort of punitive action as it relates to board meetings. So this suggested amendment applies specifically to committee meetings. What it suggests is that committee members, if they are unable to attend a committee meeting, that they provide notice at least 7 calendar days prior to the meeting in order to indicate why they are unable to attend. It suggests that alternates would be appointed by the board for each committee member, and that if a committee member is unable to attend a meeting, not only would they provide notice 7 calendar days in advance, but they would also contact their alternate and ask the alternate to attend in their absence.
The alternate would need to be a board member.
Correct. That is correct. Would be a board member. It suggests that anybody who attends a committee meeting by telephone or other electronic means would actually be considered in attendance. And it suggests that if a committee member has 3 unexcused absences from a committee meeting in any 12-month period, that the committee member would be considered removed from the committee by the board chair.
Great, thanks, David. And David and I, like you said, did have a chance to discuss this. One of the points that I raised, I think it's smart to look at this language. I am hopeful that with the changes that have recently been made in terms of our committee schedule, and the fact that it's now on a consistent day that is published, I think that our board members are going to be set up for success in a way they weren't before, when at the beginning of the year, when they were appointed to a meeting, they didn't know when it would be held, and it was always the day with the most people who could attend, so they struck out several times. They might be, an undirected committee member, whereas now, hopefully this gives someone an advantage to know that their committee meeting is going to be at 8:30, 9 or 9:30, the Friday of every board meeting, and they'll be able to accept the chair's appointment or not. So I think this is kind of getting us on the right path, but certainly looking to recognize other comments. Are there other comments in the room?
Melanie, this is Commissioner Long. I just have one thought on 9A, is that, or no, I'm sorry, it's 9B, that if a committee member is unable to attend, I don't know why the alternate has to be appointed by the entire board, because the entire board may, what?
They may not even be meeting.
They may, yeah. So, I mean, why wouldn't it be appropriate for David to, for whoever can't come, just notify the executive director?
I think the alternate should be appointed by the chair like we were all appointed.
Yeah, and then have the chair make the appointment instead of the whole board.
I concur with that.
Yes, Commissioner
Would
Starkey.
Would we go ahead and set up alternates ahead of time and then they would just call on them?
Well, I think that would be appropriate, just because the chair isn't going to necessarily know. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Jim?
I think it's easier for, the prior comment to notify David.
Correct.
And then the chair should appoint the alternate. I don't think there's going to be any issue with seamlessness in doing that.
That's how it worked when we all got appointed originally.
And I can just, the bylaws already allow for the board to delegate that appointment authority to the chair of the committee. So I think at that time, if this amendment were to be adopted by the board, they could at that time also simultaneously delegate that appointment authority of the alternate to the chair if the board wished to do so. But that ultimate delegation should first come from the board, but could be at the same meeting as the amendment's considered. And I just wanted to make one, I think there was a comment that the alternates would also have to be board members. That is true for the legislative and the policy committees, but for the planning committee, that alternate could also be citizens. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because the bylaws do structure the membership of those appointments just slightly differently between legislative and policy, which would all be board members, and planning, which could have citizen appointments.
Madam Chair, Cliff Manuel.
Yes.
You can keep chairing.
Yes.
It's a tag team, Melanie.
That's right, I look at you for chair.
It's hard when you can't see the person, you forget them.
I think it's clear in here, but just to make sure everybody understands my way of reading what I'm seeing in front of me, if a board member reaches out within 7 days, tags as alternate, and the alternate attends, that's an excused absence. I mean, you would be absent, excused, you've done your due diligence, your alternatives attended in your place, and that would be considered excused. It wouldn't count ever against the 3 unexcused, my way of thinking. Is that true?
They theoretically be attending.
You'd be attending, because you're alternates in your place.
It doesn't count.
You're attended, so it's neither way. Okay.
Legally, it's neither way.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I need someone for the next one. I'll be in Italy. No, I haven't covered yet.
Are there further comments regarding the proposed policies? Is there a motion on Commissioner Long's friendly amendment to the proposed policies? I guess, are you moving that, Commissioner Long?
I'll move it, and then, thank you, Melanie.
And then is there, I think I heard a second from Commissioner Starkey, is that correct?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, and all in favor of the amendment to the proposed policy, please say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, say nay. Okay, the amendment carries. Now we need to vote on the actual policy itself as amended. Is there a motion to move the amended policy forward?
I move to amend the recommended policy forward.
Second.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard that from Mr. Holden. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Well, we have amended policies before me today. And then the last thing up, David, you're in the hot seat again, is the Psta Central Avenue BRT project support, the support that was requested. And David had some background information for us on that.
Yes, thank you, Melanie. So PSTA, as I'm sure everybody is aware, is pursuing a bus rapid transit project along Central Avenue, which will connect downtown St. Petersburg and St. Pete Beach. They are in the process of contacting agencies, businesses, and residential organizations around the area for letters of support that they would then just post on their website as a show of support that people are interested in implementing this project. They reached out to TBARTA and asked us for a letter that they could use on their website. So we did draft up a letter that we could potentially use, but I wanted to just throw that out to the policy committee this morning to see if there were any concerns or any discussion that you all would like to have prior to sending that letter to PSTA.
Okay, with that explanation, are there discussion items? Okay, hearing none. David, do we need a vote on this? Or is this something that you were just looking to vet with the policy committee?
I was just looking for feedback. I didn't know if it was something that needed to go to the policy committee and then to the entire board, or if it was something that the policy committee had authority to approve and recommend that I send. I wasn't exactly sure what that process was, so that's why I wanted to bring it to you this morning.
Typically, I would suggest the policy committee approve this and recommend the board adopt the letter.
Correct. I would like to wholeheartedly make a motion that we approve sending the letter to PSTA and recommendation of the BRT. We are soon to find out in the fall the final answer on our federal appropriation. And so this will help us dramatically. And I know our county has sent a letter recommending the project, and we are getting letters of recommendation from many other agencies and governing boards within the county. So it's the beginning of our connection to Hillsborough County throughout the region. So I wholeheartedly support this
The policy committee recommends to, Melanie Cliff Manuel recommends to the board, and the board approves. Would it be appropriate to coordinate your signature as well with the document?
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Also very much in favor.
Okay, I think I'm hearing a wholehearted motion from Commissioner Long, and that sounded like a unanimous second from Cliff. Is that right? Is that your second,
yes,
Cliff, for
yes.
Commissioner Long's motion? Okay, great.
Yes.
With that, then, all in favor of sending this recommended letter of support, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Who
Okay, great. Well, then,
Nobody
is there-
opposed.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Commissioner Long, do you have something else?
I don't know if that's on the phone.
I thought I heard a vote in opposition.
I think she was just asking if there are any opposed.
Oh,
Is Commissioner Kemp on the phone?
I am.
Okay.
okay. Sorry.
Okay, and with that, then, I'm sorry, go ahead. Did someone else have a comment?
Yeah, I just wondered, are we still on information items?
We are going to information items, and I know, Commissioner Long, that your office sent over a couple of items for consideration. I know we have about 5 minutes left, so I don't know if you think that they can fit in that space, or if you think that it would require a longer discussion that should be moved to another meeting. I also am unsure. I don't know, since you chaired finance, I also don't know if you need these 5 minutes or if you can conclude your business in 30.
I can conclude my business in 2 minutes, if you will allow me, Madam Chair.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. Since we've had the last policy committee meeting, I've had the opportunity to meet with 2 what I think are extraordinary opportunities for TBARTA. And one of them is called the Cable Propelled Transit System. And don't think the policy committee necessarily needs to take it up before we have them come back to present to our board meeting, because David, I had my debriefing with David, and he indicated that we could just put it on the agenda if everyone agreed that it was a great idea to have them come and present. And the second one was a meeting that I had with Joe Lopano from Tampa International about the new ongoing opportunities for air taxis. And just so happened, he ended up sending me a link to what it's all about, and I'm happy to share that with the rest of the policy committee folks that are here, as well as our entire board, if that's the wish of everyone. But this is a new technology that has been developed in Germany. The principals of the company are coming here to Tampa Bay in the next 2 weeks, and our office has been working on setting up an appointment to meet with the principals while they are here. And it is fascinating, because at the end of the day, it can go from the rooftop at Tampa International to downtown St. Petersburg in 6 minutes. And so I think that's what, in my view and my vision, that's kind of what TBARTA was set up to do legislatively. And because the legislature appeared to send a message that it wants us to look at new and evolving technologies, seemed to me that we would be very remiss if we did not take advantage of at least hearing what these folks had to say. Yay me, I did it! It's less than 3 minutes!
Well, I want to add on to that. So Commissioner Long, I had a meeting with Joe Lopano and Secretary Gwynn and some others on that same subject up in my county, because I actually have a constituent, True Simulation, that's a division of Textron, a big global manufacturer, who one of their companies is Bell Helicopter, and they are testing that technology at the Dallas Fort Worth Airport, and we wanted to see if there was an opportunity to bring that testing here. So I understand there's a conglomeration in Germany that's working on this. There's another one. Actually, they're up and running in Dubai. But I would want to explore all the different companies and not just the German one, because if we have an American company, Bell Helicopter, doing that, and I have contacts for them, I'd like to invite them as well.
Chair Griffith, if I can comment too, and I might take longer than the allotted time, but my apologies. I concur with what both commissioners have said. I think the legislature gave us a clear directive to investigate all modes of transportation here as a accumulation of different options within the Tampa Bay area. And I actually just attended a conference in New York, and it was transportation related on finance. And the operative words there were seamless intermodal mobility. And people want to look at various different modes to get around. And the drone technology that Commissioner Long referred to, Mr. Starkey referred to, is one of the hottest things on Wall Street now in terms of attracting investment. And you're going to see the application both in transportation and also in delivery of freight goods and services by dropping little packages at your door that Amazon is looking at. But there are a multitude of vendors out there, and I concur with Commissioner Starkey that we should not be limited to anyone, but should study the opportunities. The one question I did have, and David and I discussed this briefly, is jurisdictional, and hopefully we can get beyond that. But typically, we are focused on transit and surface-related transportation, and I don't know whether, I assume that as a mode of transportation that eventually touches the surface, an air taxi could be, fit within that definition. But I would ask legal counsel to maybe take a look at that.
Yeah.
Within the purview of our charter and our bylaws. Conceptually, it makes a good sense. I just wouldn't want to run it foul of what DOT's rules are.
To your point, Mr. Chair, I think it would be more appropriate for our federal folks to get Harry and Steve to check with the FAA. I know that Joe Lopano is working right now with the company from Germany on working through the FAA restrictions from the airport to fly. And like we have, I think, 5 different air
Coordination
port
with state and
authorities.
federal authorities too. I think
Yeah,
is appropriate.
I
But
think that'd be very
in
wise.
terms of the overall study, I would wholeheartedly endorse looking at these different studies.
Okay, that was it. Thank you, Madam Chair. Melanie?
Yes, great. I wanted to thank you. Those are interesting comments. It sounds like we have some interesting things we'll be hearing at upcoming board meetings. So with that, are there any additional informational items before we move into, before we adjourn and move into the Finance Committee meeting?
Well, I'd like to say something on that same topic. At our discussion, one of the suggestions was to move forward with this kind of opportunity, that there be a competition. And this is what Elon Musk does with it. That's how he gets his ideas moved forward. I actually had a friend who had competed in his competition on the, what is that thing called? It goes under the ground and shoots.
Hyperloop.
Hyperloop, yeah. They won, the German conglomeration. And so it's something to think about, and why the Tampa Bay area is so attractive for this kind of technology, which is still in testing, is that they can take off from Tampa and land in St. Pete Clearwater Airport going over water, which makes it much safer to try this technology out. The problems they're having in Dallas-Fort Worth is where they take off and fly is over a very congested area, and they're having lots of problems. So it actually is a great opportunity for us, because we are set up to be a great test site for this technology.
Except in response to what you just said, we have 5 airports in this jurisdiction. So when you're flying, like in a helicopter, for example, you're going through the Tampa International, PI, the Executive Airport, Albert Whitted, and the private airport, as well as the ones coming up from Manatee. So,
but that route, Tampa St. Pete, is a good test route. That's what the Bell helicopter people told me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have to adjourn because it's time to start finance.
I was gonna say, and it sounds like we're gonna have great opportunities. The staff is helping to coordinate with these companies coming, so I'm excited. I would love the competition. I agree with Mr. Long. I know we've already cut 3 minutes into your time, so I will go ahead and adjourn the Policy Committee meeting. Thanks for the great discussion, and Commissioner Long, I think you're gonna probably go ahead and get the Finance Committee meeting going.
Yep, and hopefully we'll be able to see you at 10 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Travel safe. All right, I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order, please, and recognize that our fabulous commissioner from Manatee County has joined us. Reggie, thank you for being here. Do you want to identify yourself for the record?
Reggie Bellamy, Manatee County.
There you go.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I thought I was late.
No, because we've already had 2 committee meetings since you got here. You missed the most exciting part, by the way. And we have a quorum.
That's to be determined.
Yay us, yay us. Oh, no, this is going to be very, very good. We've come so far with our finances, and I just want to take a minute to thank Ron and Natalie for all their hard work on our behalf, working with our legislators. So Debbie, any public comment before we're kind of in a rush at the moment to get through all this. And on the consent items, we do have a quorum, so may I have a motion to approve the...
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
And now we are on discussion and action items. So Debbie, please, she's got good stuff and bad stuff. Start with the not so good.
We're taking a look at the finances through the month of June. And at June, we had a surplus of $42,000 as compared to a budget of $94,000. Some of which relates to the timing of the use of the STP dollars that we had anticipated, that Surface Transportation Program funds. And also the timing of when we're starting and doing the RTPP as well as the 5307 funds. And one of the things on the STP, which is very important, what Ron was talking about and David and Commissioner Long, with getting in advance on different operating funds, is STP dollars is one of those grants where TBARTA has to upfront the money and then get reimbursed. And of course, FDOT has been very gracious with a lot of our other grants to give us in advance. So that's why we haven't been running to use the STP dollars as fast as we have been the grants that FDOT has given in advance on. So on that piece, you know, we're doing a little bit behind schedule, but we had really no anticipation of what the timing would be this year. On the expense side, overall, we're under budget by $394,000. A couple areas that we are over budget on are salaries and fringe benefits. We've added additional staff in the commuter assistance program area, and I believe we have someone else coming on as a principal planner shortly. And then we also have been using some temporary help, and we had the MPO workshop that caused us to go over budget a little bit on there. What I'd like to turn your attention to is on the balance sheet, which isn't as pretty as it has been in the prior months. On the balance sheet for the end of June, we had $100,000, $647 in the bank. $100,000 of that is for the RTDP. The $647 gives me cause for concern. We do have a significant amount of monies that we have put into FDOT for reimbursement. We've started seeing some of that come back, which is a great thing. The money we've got in for reimbursement is greater than what we owe, so we'll be in a positive situation. What I think we're learning is, number one, we have to be very careful in what we put in our request for reimbursement from FDOT. They're looking at it very, very carefully. One of the reasons they're looking at it very carefully is they have been a great partner with TBARTA. So there's a lot of grants out there that have the option for advance payments. We've been given advances up front. So they get audited and looked at a little bit more cautiously than otherwise might be. So we just have to be cognizant on our end to make sure we don't put anything in that would kick it back and hold it up for reimbursement. The other thing is, in sitting down with FDOT, I think we've come to a better realization of what the time frame is for these reimbursements. They're not in a 3 to 5 day, they're not in an 8 to 10. We are looking at more like a 30 or sometimes a little bit more than 30-day reimbursement period. When it's going over the 30 days, it may be an issue with what we've put into the invoice. So we have to put this all into the mix when we're taking a look at our cash flows. And Melanie's done a great job keeping David and I informed on cash flows and how we were looking. So it's going to be pretty darn close until we get the advance for the 375, the one advance for the 375 from the new legislative grant. So it'll be just at this point.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, we had discussed and I think authorized investigating, setting up a revolving line of credit to deal with these kinds of issues at the prior board meeting. And I'd like an update on where we are with any kind of movement on that.
We do have news on that. And we received, it was for a $500,000 revolving line of credit. And we got no responses. So we reached back out to the financial institutions to try to understand why we didn't get any responses. Some of them from the larger financial institutions were, this was too small of an ask. Other ones were, I was on vacation, it fell off the radar screen, not enough time to respond. So I think we probably should go back out, even though we're going to be getting this lovely advance out of the $1.5 million. I think it would be a good idea to go back out on this, give them a little bit more time, have some discussions with some of the financial institutions again before the solicitation is released, and see what we get back.
Yeah, I think the exigency of doing that is important now, given the fact that we run into this issue seemingly all the time.
Correct. And the other thing, Debbie and I have talked a lot over the last month since or however long it's been since we last had a finance meeting. And I want to officially recommend that we be very, very cautious about getting our head over the front of our skis, so to speak, in terms of how we operate with our finances. And that when Debbie and David are having discussions with FDOT and they come to an agreement about how things are going to fly, that gets documented in a memo that they both understand that what was said is what was real. And if it changes, that it also be done in writing as well. Because, there's an awful lot of conversation that goes on when you're working in partnership. But the one thing that I'm very, very sensitive to is that TBARTA has operated now for more than a year, I do say, on the good credit and the viability of Psta and how we have managed our funds, and I don't want to put any of that at risk with FDOT or with our federal partners as well.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Did we do direct solicitation of
No.
mail? So it's public?
Yes, Al's behind nodding his head, but yes, we put things out on Demand Star. Last year, about a year before we did this, well, maybe not even a year, I had reached out to a lot of the smaller financial institutions who did have an appetite for a line of credit. So I think before we do this again, I'll reach back out again and say, be aware, look for it. And I don't know, Al, did we actually email specifically? I think we had a list of financial institutions we emailed to.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Sorry for speaking behind you. I'm Al Burns, Director of Procurement. We followed our normal procurement practice. We posted it on the TBARTA website and on Demand Star, as well as the Psta website. We sent this in direct notice to about 7 banking institutions, and like my boss said, Debbie Leos, we got various responses: on vacation, we're not interested, too small. So based off of this discussion here, I'm taking copious notes, and I'll meet with Debbie and we'll reach out directly and actually pick up the phone before the solicitation goes out.
Correct. Good. Thank you very much, Al.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'm just so thankful we're so far ahead of where we've been. It's just a great new day for TBARTA in a lot of ways. We've got David now. We've got money in the bank. I mean, that's just
$647,000. We'll be better next month.
We'll be better, hopefully. Well, but it's not our fault. That's the point I'm trying to make. We've been trying to do everything we've been supposed to do.
Don't forget, we also had our first interest income.
Yeah, with a couple
Yes,
of
$1 something.
$1.07.
It's growing.
Yeah. Anything else for the good of the order today?
I would like to, I don't know if you want to take this out of order, because we do have resolutions on here, but the risk assessment, if you'd like me to wait to that point in the agenda, or just go ahead with it.
Hold on a second. I've got my paperwork messed up here. Okay. Yes, we will, we can take up the resolutions. Can't we take up the resolutions right now? That's pretty important because that gets us our money, right?
It does.
David?
Yes, so as was indicated during the legislative committee meeting, TBARTA was successful during this past legislative session, receiving an amount of $2.5 million from the legislature. It's not coming to us exactly how anybody had hoped, but we are completely grateful nonetheless that the legislature has approved this money for us. It's in the form of 2 grants, one for an amount of $1.5 million for TBARTA operations, and the second is a grant of $1 million to identify, study, and develop transit innovations, as was discussed during the policy committee. In order for TBARTA to accept those grants, TBARTA's board obviously has to approve resolutions that we submit to FDOT indicating such. One thing I want to note, as Ron hinted to during the legislative committee related to the $1.5 million. There is no local match requirement for that particular grant, but the money that will come to us will involve one single advance of 3 months of expenses, which amount to $375,000. What will happen is that we will submit for reimbursement requests to FDOT on a monthly basis in order to replenish that advance and keep the operating fund in place. And we certainly appreciate FDOT working with us in order to make that accommodation. And we certainly think we can work with that throughout the year.
Excellent.
And so we are recommending that the Finance Committee move this to the board to accept or approve both of these resolutions.
I will
Move to approve.
second.
Resolutions 06 and 07, both?
Yeah,
Second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And Debbie, you already spoke to the line of credit. Is there anything else that you want to bring up with regard to that?
No, I think we've covered it.
Okay, and on the risk assessment, do you want to talk about that?
I would love to. At the last board meeting, I believe Chair Holton, you had asked, as well as some other folks on the board, to have a risk assessment done. And I've spoken with and met with Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, as has David. And actually, we will have that risk assessment included as part of their annual fee to us. So there'll be no additional charge for that piece. The other thing that David, Melanie, and I met yesterday as we're working on the budget from a risk standpoint is we've been talking about the $1.5 million. As we go through our budget process, we want to also take a look at the risk that we have and how we'll address it as to the $1.5 million. What happens if it's not recurring? What happens, or even a next one time? So that we can see what other grants it may possibly go back to, so we don't, as Commissioner Long said, maybe get our head, how'd you say it, get your head up,
Above skis.
yes, I don't ski, so.
Our head over our skis,
Yes,
I guess you're not a
our head
skier.
over our skis. So from that risk standpoint, we want to be mindful of how we're moving forward through this next year, not knowing the outcome of that $1.5 million moving forward. So we'll do our own little risk assessment through the budget process on that as well.
I think that's an excellent idea.
So that's concludes my update. No cost for this.
Excellent. I can't wait till our next meeting to see how it all turns around. It's almost like a, great anticipation we can all expect. I have another business item, if you don't mind, me just bringing that to everyone's attention at the moment, because it kind of sort of flows into the last thing on our agenda of an operating budget. So now we've had the benefit of having David here for how long have you been here now? It seems like forever.
Years.
And I, in talking with Debbie, and I had my debriefing with David, and we've got some really exciting opportunities that we're talking about. It seems to me that it would be very worthwhile for us to have a strategic planning meeting for TBARTA to kind of take everything we've heard over the last however long you've been here, think about the things that are poised to come in our future, as well as the legislative intent that Ron and Natalie have been sharing with us so articulately, and think about what our vision is for the next 5 years for TBARTA. I think when you put all of the great minds together and you come together with that kind of a plan, it helps to drive you in that direction, and you don't tend to get so scattered and all over the place. Because David came to us with great successes from his experiences that he's had in his life, it seems to me that he's very poised to really bring forth a visionary plan to take us into the future. And I think that would be exciting for all of us to participate in. as an elected official, and for those of us that are on this board, it seems to me the future is extraordinarily bright and that we owe it to our citizens, and especially as it relates to an opportunity to begin to think about and include, for example, those things that can benefit Manatee County. I know when we went down there for that board meeting, I was so fortunate I went the night before, because for those folks that waited till that morning, it was a nightmare. They closed all the bridges, people couldn't go. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that, but I hope you'll think it's a great idea, because that's how we operate on the other boards that I serve on, and I think it has served us very well.
Chair?
Yeah.
To that point too, and I concur with that, I would add to that, I would strongly recommend if we're going to do this, that we potentially think about using a facilitator. I served on one of these kind of visioning sessions for DOT.
Absolutely.
Transportation Commission. Facilitators can help define the issues, put them in perspective, and help everyone reach a consensus in doing these kind of things.
Correct.
And it's a lot easier than moving just around the table and discussing things, but getting actual substantive recommendations.
And to that point,
And
to that point, and then I'll recognize David. I recently went through a strategic planning session with FAC, the Florida Association of Counties, and we had a facilitator, John Streetmeyer. I don't know if any of you have worked with him. Pinellas County has used him before in our strategic planning exercises, and the whole focus of what his strategy was in terms of moving the entire board was how to influence people and how to move minds when you're moving forward with new thinking and it was just incredibly fascinating. So just as an example, I agree with you, David.
DOT has a list of great facilitators that have moved along projects similar to this and other projects.
I'm
there,
sure.
So I think we could potentially piggyback on some of their.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate your comments, Madam Chair, and they actually dovetail very nicely into Envision 2030, which, as you all are aware, is TBARTA's Regional Transit Development Plan that we're in the process of completing. Coincidentally, the regional peer assessment that Envision 2030 completes, the draft results of the regional peer assessment will be submitted to TBARTA staff by the end of today. We're going to review those results, and we will bring them to TBARTA's board at the September board meeting and share them with you. And that information will help inform what TBARTA's future could look like and what the organizational staff would need to be in order to accommodate the roles and responsibilities that we will have within our 5-county region over the next 10 years.
Correct.
So I appreciate your comments.
Correct, and I am very aware that there can be significant differences between the way planners and staff look at things and the way policy people and boards look at things. So I think having an opportunity to have those discussions with all that knowledge that will bring to us would be pretty exciting. Okay. What?
One other announcement.
Yes, because we still have the operating budget to talk about in the next 5 minutes, so make your announcement.
I was just going to mention, since we got on the topic of local funding a little while ago, the local funding contribution invoices have been sent. They were sent to the counties on July the 5th, so for those commissioners who are here in attendance, just wanted to put that on your radar.
Okay, I will push our budget department to write that check ASAP.
I'm not on the committee, but may I ask a question?
Of course.
Is that from last year's fiscal budget or the upcoming fiscal? I mean.
Upcoming.
Yeah, so we don't approve that budget until October. So I don't.
Are you sure it's not for this fiscal year? So that's anticipated?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we don't.
Correct.
we
Thank
don't
you for the
approve that till
question.
September. Yeah,
Would you copy me on that?
unless you need it now and I can.
No, I just wanted to put it on your radar.
Okay.
You should have been copied. If you weren't, we can get you a copy of that.
Yeah, I got a copy of it. You should have gotten a copy of it.
We'll send it.
Debbie,
Yes, ma'am.
operating budget.
David and Melanie and the whole team have been working really hard on putting together a draft operating budget. I'm really thrilled with how they've structured it. They actually have departments now within TBARTA.
Wow.
It's a little scary.
It's all becoming real, Commissioner. So I think it's fantastic. We're taking a look at it. They've done a great job on the first draft. David, Melanie, and I, as I mentioned, met yesterday. We'll probably have to have a meeting or two more to hone things down and also look at the risk part of it. And that will help us to develop what our ask will be. And it was good to hear today that it could be partially recurring and partially non-recurring if you're limited as to when you have to spend it, that time frame. It's good information. So we'll be coming back with a recommendation on that.
Excellent, and then maybe as soon as you have the recommendation, at least we'll have a hypothetical of what Ron will need. We can start talking to members officially. Yeah. Okay, good work, everybody. This has been a very busy morning already.
Chair, one final, and I'll take 20
Sure.
seconds. Can we, just as a potential ask for staff, schedule these meetings so there's maybe a 15-minute lag time before the start of the full board meeting, for the sake of the audience and everyone else here?
I think it's a great idea. I'm not in charge, you are, so between you and
get here 15 minutes earlier?
No, just, if we do this on this schedule, maybe have the board meeting convened at 10:50.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or even have like a 5 or 10-minute break in between the meetings would be good too, especially for those of us that like to drink coffee.
We can give you all some language for your notices that can account for some of those gaps in time. Yeah. That way you can pick up the next one when you're ready.
I mean, we have to notice that we're actually going to go to the ladies' room, is that what you're trying to say?
No, not at all.
All right, then, for the good of the order, I think we are adjourned. I'll see you in 5 minutes downstairs.
Actually, noticing for flexibility was what I was referring to. So you could say 9:30 or as soon, basically giving yourself the flexibility.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Oh, yeah. Thought I'd be here earlier, but
Yes.
so slow.
You're concise. When you got it, Chris Jess, by the way.
A little this, a little that. Yourself? Show me.
Today's Emily's birthday, so it's good.
Really?
14.
Oh, wow. So what are you doing special?
I think we're gonna
Oh, really?
But tomorrow we're having family dinner. So,
Okay.
and then next weekend we're having a little party.
Mine's headed to